You are 3 hours into your shift when the sky fills with ships. Not unusual, the Meridian corridor sees traffic, container haulers, diplomatic skiffs, the occasional military patrol running dark. You have learned to read them by their exhaust signatures the way a farmer reads clouds, which is in fact exactly what you are, even if the field you tend is bolted to the observation deck of what was once a gangster frigate. The watering can in your hand is a modified coolant reservoir. The soil beneath your boots is a substrate blend of volcanic gravel, reclaimed nutrient paste, and compost you have been building for 2 years from kitchen scraps and structural insulation foam that Archie insisted you were not supposed to remove. Your soybean plants stand in rows precise enough to satisfy a geometry teacher. Your tomato vines climb a lattice of salvaged antenna cable. Your alfalfa spreads low and quiet near the drainage grates, and it is the alfalfa you are thinking about. Specifically the northern row, which has been slow for 3 days and which you suspect is being outcompeted by a fungal bloom under Grate 7 when you look up. The ships are not passing through, they are stopping. "Arch," you say. "Present," says Archer, whose voice comes from a speaker embedded in a carved stone owl you found in the original owner's vault, and which you have never moved, because moving it would constitute a redecorating decision, and you have made it a point of principle not to redecorate anything on this ship except the observation deck. I observe that you have noticed the fleet. How many? 43 vessels of varying classification. The largest is an Imperial convocation carrier. The configuration is ceremonial. I believe you are about to receive guests. You look at your watering can. You look at the sky. They can't land here. The carrier appears to be deploying landing platforms. They can in fact land here. The physics support it. I mean, I won't allow it. You have, Archie observes, left the front door unlocked again. You did. You always do. Not because you want visitors. You have spent 2 years and considerable effort constructing a garden defense system subtle enough to track an uninvited boot print from 300 meters using the lean of your alfalfa. But because there is a specific and irreplaceable pleasure in watching someone walk through an unlocked door, they assumed they needed to force, and seeing their confidence dissolve when they realized the challenge was never the door. You keep the door unlocked so you can have the satisfaction of expelling people personally. This satisfaction, you are now understanding, may have finally outpaced your planning. The fleet settles into orbital formation with the practiced ease of people who park warships the way you park tractors, not carefully, but confidently, and somehow it works. A single shuttle detaches from the carrier's belly, sleek, blue gold, moving with the quiet certainty of something that has never in its operational history been told no. You put down the watering can. You pull the broken data tablet from your shirt pocket and polish it once with your sleeve. The screen is cracked across the diagonal. It has not displayed anything for a year. It contains, as far as functional data goes, nothing, except for a grocery list your grandmother made 19 years ago on a Thursday morning in a town on a planet you will never see again, before the evacuation that should have taken someone else and did not. Because someone in the Ministry of Displacement typed your registration number instead of your neighbor Hartwell Cruz, and Hartwell Crew has been dead for 12 years, and you have been alive for 12 years in Hartwell Crew's slot in the universe, spending a resource you never earned. The tablet is warm from your body heat. You put it back. Archie, you say, can you scan the lead shuttle for weapons? Yes, they have weapons, ceremonial ones, which are still weapons. They also have something more dangerous. What? A list, Archie says. I intercepted the Standard Herald broadcast. You are, apparently, the registered owner of the vessel designation. Null Coronet, originally the Vathrak Meridian, which was impounded from the Caravan Syndicate 16 months before you purchased it from the Displacement Authority auction for the price of 1 space tractor and an antique ashtray. I remember. The vessel has been flagged as Imperial property under the Reclamation Accords. However, Archie pauses, which is unusual for an AI and suggests it has learned drama from you. The Herald's broadcast includes a secondary protocol. The Imperial Court of Vailindra Soth, 7th of her house, sovereign of the Cerulean Reach, is not here to repossess. They are here for the ceremony of consideration. You have no idea what that means. You say so. Every 50 years, the sovereign of the Cerulean Reach must take a consort. The ceremony of consideration is held aboard a vessel of historical significance. The Vathrak Meridian, your home, was the ship on which her great-grandmother signed the Seventh Accord. It is technically imperial sacred ground. You look at the soybeans, you look at the alfalfa, you look at the tomato plants, which are heavy and red and beautiful, particularly the cluster near Great Seven that you have been monitoring for color development for 3 weeks, which are going to be extraordinary, which you have been looking forward to harvesting with a specific and patient joy that has nothing to do with anyone else. Tell them, you say, that I am unavailable. They are already on approach vector. Also, the front door is unlocked. I know. The shuttle lands on your forward hull with the authority of someone sitting in a chair they already own. You do not go to meet them. This is a deliberate decision. Instead, you finish the northern row, you make a note about Great Seven, you take a soil sample from the slow section of the alfalfa and seal it in a tube. Then you go inside, wash your hands at the sink that takes 23 seconds to produce warm water, because the heating element is 3/4 failed, and you have replaced everything on this ship except that element. Because replacing it would mean the sink works perfectly, and you do not trust things that work perfectly. And you brew a pot of coffee in the machine that takes 9 minutes and makes a sound like a man trying to remember a song he half learned. You are on your second cup when the delegation finds you. There are 6 of them, 4 soldiers in blue-gold armor designed by someone who let function win every argument with aesthetics, 1 herald with a staff that is very definitely still a weapon, and 1, you have to revise your categories here, person who does not belong to any of those groups. He is roughly humanoid, which is common enough. He is wearing a suit the color of a safety cone, which is less common. It is made of a fabric that, were it on Earth, would be described as athletic spandex, except this particular spandex appears to be woven with actual reflective material, such that when he moves, and he moves constantly, in a series of rhythmic, purposeful motions involving both knees and a degree of hip rotation, that suggests the motions are culturally significant. He throws small reflections across your kitchen walls like a slow-moving disco effect. He stops when he sees you. He places both feet together. He executes 3 rapid vertical jumps and then holds a pose. You drink your coffee. Lord Shrexapol of the Velunthi, the herald announces, reading from a scroll, 43rd Prince of the Orbital Succession, presents himself as a candidate of consideration. Good for him, you say. Lord Shrexapol beams. His translator renders his next statement as, I understand your people's custom of greeting. I have prepared. He then performs what is unmistakably an aerobic routine, high knees, grapevines, a moment of what appears to be dedicated step aerobics, with the full commitment of someone who has studied it for months and is proud of every second. He finishes with a thumbs up, which the translator informs you he believes is the human equivalent of a formal bow. You are welcome, you say, because he is, technically. He walked in the unlocked door, but he knocked first. You heard him. You chose this moment, the herald recovering his composure. The sovereign requests the presence of the registered vessel occupant at the ceremony of consideration. The ceremony begins at 3rd bell. Attendance is not optional under the terms of the reclamation accords. I'm a farmer, you say. I don't have bells. Sundown, the herald translates. You look out the porthole. You calculate the remaining watering you need to do, the soil sample analysis, the evening check of the nutrient lines, including the one near Great 11 that you have suspected for 2 days, is developing a partial blockage. You calculate whether any of this can be compressed. It cannot be compressed. This is your honest assessment. Fine, you say. Tell her I'll come, but I'm not changing. The herald looks at your clothes, work trousers, long-sleeved shirt with a soil stain on the left cuff, boots that have been resoled 3 times. He looks at your Kevlar-reinforced straw hat hanging on the hook by the door. As you wish, he says, in the tone of a man who has given up. Lord Shrexapol gives you another thumbs up. The ceremony is held in what was once the Vathrak Meridian's ceremonial gallery, which you have used since purchasing the ship as secondary storage for seed stock and spare irrigation fittings. The Imperial staff has moved your storage. They have hung banners. They have installed lighting that makes the space look like the inside of a very formal nebula. The walls are lined with beings of a variety that would require several graduate-level xenobiology courses to properly catalogue. All of them armoured, robed, jewelled, or some combination of the three. You walk in wearing your hat. There is a visible ripple through the assembled crowd. Not of contempt exactly, more of recalibration, as if a sensor array has received data that does not match its calibration and is now trying to decide what category to assign it. You find a place near the back. You stand there the way you stand in your garden, present, observant, not performing anything. Sovereign Velindra Soth enters from a high walkway above the gallery, and the image from the Herald's broadcast, the blue-skinned woman in the star-scattered gown, collapses into something more specific and therefore more real. She is not a symbol walking. She is someone walking carefully, with the controlled posture of a person who has learned that how she holds her head is read as policy by 100 diplomats. Her crown is small, sharp-pointed, and looks heavier than it appears to be. The suitors are presented in sequence. They are impressive, not a small word, applied genuinely. Genetic champions, military heroes, planetary governors with bloodlines engineered for brilliance. They approach. They present themselves. Some speak at length. Some demonstrate martial skill. One dissolves briefly into light and reforms, which gets an audible reaction from the crowd. Velindra Soth watches each one with an attention that is complete and yields nothing. She raises her hand once, palm flat for each. The herald announces the formal rejection. They step aside. You stop counting at 300 and start thinking about the Great 11 nutrient line. You have been standing for 2 hours. You are not built for ceremonies. You are built for soil samples and irrigation schedules, and the specific vigilance of watching something grow in real time. You slip out. Not conspicuously. You find the gap near the secondary door that your garden-trained spatial awareness identified 20 minutes ago as the path of least resistance, and you exit without pushing through a single dignitary. You walk back toward the observation deck, and you are thinking about the nutrient line. And you are not thinking about anything ceremonial at all. You are in the nutrient conduit access tunnel, specifically the elbow junction near Great 11, with your arm up to the shoulder in the pipe housing and your hat pushed back on your head, which is exactly how the hat gets jammed into the narrow angle of the fitting in a way that provides unexpected leverage against the clog when the delegation finds you again. You hear the footsteps. You keep working. The Sovereign, the herald announces from behind you, and his voice has achieved a pitch that suggests this sentence is not a normal one for him, has made her selection. You do not stop working. The Sovereign has selected you. You work the clog free. A thick slug of consolidated nutrient paste ejects from the pipe with a sound that is deeply undignified. You pull your arm out, confirm flow has resumed, and turn around. 6 soldiers, 1 herald, 1 Lord Shrexapole in fresh spandex, slow marching in place, and Sovereign Velindra Soth, who has walked through a maintenance tunnel in a star-scattered gown without appearing to find any of this unusual, and is looking at you with the expression of someone who has made a decision they are entirely comfortable with. Your hat is still jammed sideways from the fitting. "I'm busy," you say. "I know," she says. Her translator is good. The cadence is nearly natural. "I watched you leave. Then you know the nutrient line near Great 11 has been partially blocked for 2 days and was about to cause a pressure differential that would have damaged the alfalfa root system." "I know now." You look at her. She looks at you. The herald appears to be experiencing a small personal crisis. "I'm also not a suitor," you say. "I wasn't in the gallery. I'm the registered occupant of this vessel. That's a different category." "Yes," she says. "That's why." You pull the Kevlar hat off your head, shake the nutrient paste off the brim and put it back on. You are not certain what protocol applies here. You are fairly sure no protocol was written for this specific situation. "Archie," you say, via the comm stud in your collar. "Am I required to accept this?" Archie's voice, from a speaker somewhere in the wall. The reclamation accords specify that the registered occupant of a vessel hosting the ceremony of consideration is required to accept a formal selection if made. You signed those terms when you purchased the vessel. Section 58 of the purchase agreement. Did I read Section 58? You read Sections 1 through 3 and then skipped to the pricing. You look at the sovereign. She has a small expression that is not quite a smile and is possibly one. I don't want to be a consort, you say. I want to grow soybeans. I know, she says again. Then why? She is quiet for a moment, not uncomfortable, but choosing precision. I have spent 3 days reviewing candidate files, 1,012 candidates. I know what each one wants from me. Influence, alliance, prestige, access to the cerulean reaches transit corridors. The one who dissolved into light wants a treaty that will let his family control a specific jump gate. She pauses. None of them looked at me. They looked at what I represent. I wasn't looking at you at all, you say. I was looking at a nutrient blockage. Yes, she says. There is a long quiet. What do you actually want, you ask. I want someone to help me turn a dying empire into something that grows, she says. I know how to govern what already exists. I don't know how to start from nothing and make something live. You look at your arm, still covered in nutrient paste. You think about Hartwell Crew, whose slot in the evacuation manifest you occupy, whose life resource you have been spending for 12 years on soybeans and alfalfa, in the hull of a gangster frigate you bought with a tractor and an ashtray. You think about whether that spending has been worthy or wasteful. You have not resolved this question. You have been watering things at 3 in the morning instead. That's not a small thing to ask, you say. No, she says. I'm not going to stop growing things. I'm not asking you to. I'm not going to live in a palace. I haven't offered one. I don't know anything about empires. You know how to make something live in a metal hull with bad soil and a failed heating element, she says. She glances at the nutrient pipe you just unblocked. I know more about empires than I need to. I need someone who knows about the other part. Your hand reaches into your pocket and polishes the broken tablet without consulting you. She watches the gesture without asking, which is notable. Everyone who has ever seen it has asked. That's my grandmother's shopping list, you say. Not an explanation, just true. I know, she says for the 3rd time, which is too much for coincidence. You ran a file on me. Standard intelligence protocol. I run files on everyone in Imperial space. What does mine say? That you were evacuated from the Ganthar collapse 12 years ago under a manifest error. That your neighbor's designation was entered in your slot. That you have been the registered occupant of 3 locations since then, each one more remote than the last. That you bought this vessel because it was the cheapest property in the Meridian corridor, and because it came with a dead hydroponic system you thought you could fix. She pauses. The file doesn't say why you keep the tablet. I inferred. You look at the cracked screen. You look at her. He had 3 kids, you say, Hartwell Crew. You have not said his name out loud in 11 years. He was going to teach the oldest to fish. I know. I'm not a replacement for him or for anything. I'm not looking for a replacement, she says. I'm looking for someone patient enough to watch something fail 14 times and try again on the 15th. The nutrient line behind you hisses softly. Clean flow, restored pressure. I'll think about it, you say. She nods. The tomato plants near Grate 7. Don't let your people near them. Why? They're close to harvest. I don't want the soil disturbed. She looks at you for a moment with that complete attention. I'll tell them, she says. She walks back up the maintenance tunnel with the same composed posture she walked in with, and Lord Shrexapol falls into step beside her, executing a series of lateral shuffles in her wake that she does not acknowledge and that you suspect she has learned to process as background motion. You go back to the garden. You check Grate 7. The tomatoes are beautiful, red, tight, just beginning to soften at the shoulder. You test one with your thumb and decide, 3 days, maybe 4. You will know when you know. Arch, you say. What happens if I accept? You would be designated Imperial Consort of the Cerulean Reach. Your vessel would be formally reclaimed as Imperial property under co-ownership. You would be entitled to a new registered domicile. My garden. You would presumably have access to the garden. The terms would require negotiation. A pause. For what it's worth. And I note that the concept of worth is a philosophical construct I find unconvincing. You have spent 2 years building this garden. You could build another one. This one took 2 years. A new one would also take 2 years, Archie says. You have already spent 12 years on approximately nothing. 2 years is not actually that long. You stand very still in your alfalfa. That is the most useful thing Archie has ever said. It is also possibly the first time Archie has said something designed to be useful rather than philosophically impenetrable, which means either Archie has changed or this situation is different enough that even a nihilist AI is adjusting its approach. You like her, you say. I find her decision-making methodology coherent, Archie says. That is the highest compliment I am capable of rendering. At 3 in the morning you are watering the north alfalfa row because the plants need it and because you need the dark and the specific quiet of a ship that is always slightly off balance. That is when Archie speaks again, without being asked. Bull. It uses your name. It has never used your name. There is something you should know about the tomato plants. You stop watering. The heritage seed stock you purchased from the caravan displacement auction, specifically Lot 7, tomato variant, described in the auction manifest as Organic Heritage Cultivar Meridian Origin. I have been running a passive spectral analysis on the mature fruits for the last 18 hours. And? The seeds contain an encrypted data structure. I identified the signature 20 minutes ago. It is a caravan syndicate device, specifically a type used to embed activation codes for ship systems, the Vathrak Meridian's original systems. Archie's voice is precisely controlled. The tomato fruit, when it reaches full maturity, which I estimate will occur in approximately 61 hours, will broadcast the embedded activation signal through the ship's nutrient distribution network, which you have restored to full function, which means it will reach every system node simultaneously. What does the signal do? The Vathrak Meridian was modified by the Caravan Syndicate before its impoundment. The modification is a deadlock protocol. When activated, it simultaneously locks all external airlocks, disables propulsion, and initiates a synchronized overload in the power coupling array. Archie pauses. The modification was designed to prevent the vessel from being seized by authorities. The gangsters expected to be boarded. They hid the activation code in a seed because they planned to retrieve it after the seizure attempt failed. They didn't retrieve it, you say, because they got arrested. Correct. The seed went into the displacement auction with the rest of the ship's contents. You planted it. You look at the tomato vines near Great 7. Beautiful, red, heavy. 61 hours. The Imperial fleet is docked to your hull. 43 vessels. The convocation carrier carries. Archie pulls the manifest before you ask. Approximately 4,000 crew and passengers, including the Sovereign and her full court, and one Lord Shrexapol, who is probably in his bunk, doing some kind of rhythmic cool-down routine. If the deadlock activates, every ship docked to the Vathrak Meridian goes dark. The power overload in the coupling array will cascade into the docking interfaces. You will trap and disable the entire Imperial fleet. This will be interpreted as an attack. This will start a war. Archie, you say, can you deactivate the seed signal? I cannot access the signal without activating it prematurely. The encryption is keyed to the seed's biological maturity state. It activates when the tomato completes its ripening cycle, not before. Any interference with the biological process will cause immediate premature activation. So I can't kill the plant. Correct. Any cellular disruption will trigger the signal. Can I remove the seed before it fully ripens? Not without disrupting the cellular matrix. Same result. Can I block the nutrient network from transmitting the signal? The signal uses the nutrient distribution infrastructure as a carrier medium. To block it, I would need to shut down the entire nutrient network, which would kill your plants, and physically sever the distribution nodes from the ship's primary systems. 12 access points across the ship. 4 are in sections currently occupied by Imperial crew. So I'd have to tell them, you say. Yes, and if they panic and cut the vines themselves, immediate activation. If they try to evacuate the docked ships, the docking clamps are mechanically integrated. Manual release takes 6 hours minimum. The signal arrives in 61. You look at the plant. It does not look like a weapon. It looks like a tomato plant. It is doing exactly what you asked it to do when you planted it. Growing. You reach into your shirt pocket and polish the broken tablet. Your hand does it without permission. Hartwell Crew had 3 kids. You have been spending his resource allocation for 12 years on alfalfa. Wake her up, you say. The sovereign. She needs to know first, before anyone panics. Vailindra Soth arrives at your garden 12 minutes later, which is faster than you expected, which tells you she was not entirely asleep. She is wearing something simpler than the ceremony gown, a deep blue working suit, no crown, hair loose. She looks like someone who runs an empire when the empire is not performing for observers. You show her the tomato plant. You tell her everything Archie told you. She listens without interrupting. When you finish, she is quiet for 10 seconds. You count. 12 access points, she says. You and I. 6 hours each. I do better work alone. You'll work faster with a second pair of hands. I know how to follow instructions. She holds your look. Tell me what to do. You're not going to brief your fleet? Your security team? My security team will want to evacuate. Evacuation triggers the signal. She does not blink. I trust your assessment. You said we can shut it down without triggering it if we sever the nodes manually. We have 61 hours. We start now. If I'm wrong, then we were going to die in 61 hours regardless, she says. And I'd rather spend those hours doing something useful than evacuating into space and waiting. You nod. One condition, you say. The tomatoes are mine. After this is done, nobody touches them until they're ready. Something in her face shifts. That near smile again, but less near this time. The tomatoes are yours, she says. The next 19 hours are the strangest of your life, which is saying something. You and the sovereign of the Cerulean Reach crawl through maintenance access tunnels, remove panel covers, identify distribution node housings, and physically sever the connection points, using a combination of your hydroponics tools and her surprisingly comprehensive personal toolkit, carried in a case that fits inside her working suit and contains, among other things, a molecular bonding cutter that costs more than your ship did. She follows your instructions with precision, no improvisation, no second guessing. When you say hold the panel at 40 degrees, she holds it at 40 degrees. When you say the node is behind the secondary conduit, don't touch the conduit, she doesn't. The first 6 hours pass in near silence. There is no need to talk. The work is self-directing, and you both understand that. In hour 7, in the access passage below deck 4, she says, "Did you plant the tomatoes on purpose?" "No." "I know. I just wanted to hear you say it." In hour 9, you take a break in the corridor outside access point 7, eating ration bricks from your jacket pocket and drinking water from your coolant reservoir watering can, which you brought because it is the right container. She accepts a ration brick without comment and eats it with the expression of someone who has eaten worse things for political reasons. "My grandmother used to make a list," you say. You don't know why you say it. Every Thursday, completely ordinary things: bread, cooking oil, the specific cheese she liked that came from a specific town on a specific coast. She does not say anything. She lets the sentence settle. When the evacuation happened, she had been gone 3 years already. The list was on her old tablet. Hartwell, my neighbor, he had the same model. His list would have been on a tablet that looked exactly like hers, and his slot in the manifest was identical to mine, except for 2 digits. You look at the cracked screen. I have never been able to figure out which error was made, whether someone typed my number when they meant to type his, or whether they typed his and sent me and left him behind. Does it change what happened? No. Does it change what you do next? You look at her. She is eating the ration brick with focused efficiency and watching you with the complete attention that is. You are beginning to understand the actual nature of her power, not the title or the gown or the fleet, the attention. No, you say. Then you already know the answer. You take out the tablet and look at it. The cracked screen, the dark glass. Bread, cooking oil, cheese from a coastal town, you say. That's all it was. A Thursday list. Some things are exactly what they appear to be, she says. That's not a small thing. You put the tablet in your pocket. You pick up the watering can. You stand up. 9 more access points, you say. 9 more, she agrees. You finish the last node at hour 19. Archie confirms the nutrient distribution network is fully isolated from the ship's primary systems. The tomato plant near Grate 7 is alive, still ripening, disconnected from anything it could possibly harm. You stand in the garden. The tomato is exactly as beautiful as it was before you knew what was inside it. This is not a metaphor. It is a tomato, and it will be ready in 4 days, and it will be the best tomato you have grown, and you will eat it without guilt. Confirmed, Archie says. Signal pathway severed. Deadlock protocol is inert. The Vathrak Meridian's original modification is fully neutralized. A pause. You are both, incidentally, covered in nutrient paste and structural lubricant. I find this aesthetically appropriate in ways I cannot fully explain, given that I don't believe in aesthetics. You look at Velindra Soth, who is in fact covered in a significant amount of structural lubricant from access point 11, which had a secondary seal failure that she handled without complaint. She looks back at you. Your garden, she says, is the most dangerous place I have ever been. The alfalfa, you say, is also functioning as a motion detection grid. The lean of the northern cluster told me your fleet was 2 kilometers out before Archie picked it up on sensors. She stares at you. Tactical biological architecture, you say. The garden works. She begins to laugh. It is quiet and genuine, and it changes the specific quality of the air in a way that is not described by any physical measurement, but is nonetheless real. The next day you relay the Caravan Syndicate's modification data to Imperial Intelligence, with coordinates for the auction lot in which the devices were hidden. 3 people are arrested. 2 are already serving sentences for unrelated offenses, which accelerates their processing. The intelligence commander sends you a formal commendation document that you use as a seed tray liner. Lord Shrexapol, upon learning that the ceremony resulted in a selection, requests permission to stay aboard for 1 additional day to document what he describes as the authentic human harvest ritual, which appears to mean he wants to watch you water plants. You let him. He watches with complete reverence, takes 12 minutes of footage and broadcasts it across Volunti social channels under the title The Sacred Rights of the Earth People. It receives approximately 40 million views, which is how the fashion for peasant agricultural aesthetics begins spreading through the galactic aristocracy. The first noble to attempt planting diamonds in a window box and wait for them to grow is the Marchioness of Terravel Station, who reports the results as inconclusive and plans to try rubies in spring. You do not find out about this for 6 weeks. When you do, you sit on one of the garden benches you built. Ergonomic, finished carefully, designed for a visitor to sit in comfort while watching plants grow, and you cannot decide whether to laugh or feel something more complicated. And then you decide the distinction does not require resolution and you laugh anyway. The formal answer you give Velindra Soth is not romantic. It is a negotiated settlement, conducted over 3 days at the garden work table with Archie providing legal reference on demand and occasional existential commentary on the nature of contractual obligation. The coffee machine makes its struggling song throughout all of it. The key terms. The Vathrak Meridian remains in your possession as registered occupant. Sovereign Velindra Soth holds co-registered ownership under the Reclamation Accords, legally not significantly different from before the ceremony, except that now it carries an official stamp instead of an unresolved legal ambiguity. You will advise the Imperial Restoration Council, a new council proposed by you, accepted by her, on the development of sustainable cultivation systems for the 12 Cerulean Reach colony worlds currently dependent on food import. You will do this from your garden. You will not live in a palace she will visit. Frequency to be determined. Logistics to be handled by her diplomatic team. Your front door unlocked. The relationship, you say the word carefully, as a category not yet assigned but not denied, will develop at whatever pace it develops. You have both survived worse timelines. You are both capable of patience. You shake hands. Her hand is blue, long-fingered, cool. Your hand is warm, rough, still faintly stained with nutrient paste from the night before. The handshake is brief and businesslike and is somehow the most honest thing that has happened during this entire ceremony. One more thing, you say. Yes? You go to the garden and come back with a cloth bag. Inside it, sealed seed pouches, labeled in your handwriting, alfalfa, soybean. Heritage tomato, a different lot than the one with the gangster's device. A seed stock you have been growing from scratch for 18 months. Clean, tested, verified. You hand her the bag. For wherever you want to start, you say. She takes it with both hands. How long before anything grows, she asks. Depends on the soil, the light, the water discipline, you say. 3 weeks for the alfalfa, 8 for the soybeans. The tomatoes take what they take. That's not a precise answer. No, you say, it isn't. The fleet departs the next morning. Your garden is intact, your nutrient lines are clean. Grate 11 has a new seal. Archie notes that you have, in 2 days, done more structural maintenance to the ship than in the previous 6 months combined, and that perhaps danger is an effective motivational framework. Or company, you say. A distinction without a meaningful difference, Archie says. Both produce results. The tomato near grate 7 is ready on the 4th day. You harvest it in the early morning when the light is right. It is the exact color you expected. The weight in your hand is satisfying. Dense, heavy, everything it promised to be when you planted it 11 months ago. You eat it standing in the garden, still warm from the grow lights, over the sink that takes 23 seconds to produce warm water, with a little salt from the small dish on the counter. You pull out the broken tablet. You look at the cracked screen. Bread, cooking oil, cheese from a coastal town. You put it back in your pocket. Somewhere in the cerulean reach there are 12 worlds that need gardens. There is a bag of seeds moving toward them, in the hold of an imperial carrier ship. There is work to be done that will take years and fail sometimes and require starting again, and eventually, if the soil is prepared correctly, if the water discipline is maintained, if someone pays attention at 3 in the morning when attention is needed, will grow. You pick up the watering can. The northern alfalfa needs you. You go.